Welcome to Silo Cinema, Real Time's online experimental short film screening. Silo Cinema offers the opportunity for anyone to share their work. For many of the groups that Real Time works with, it provides a unique opportunity for them to get their work seen.
Now take my grandfather, farmer from along the line of Dorset farmers, one of the pioneers of the Tower silo for making silage. Great advantage of the Tower silo is that it automates part of the process. Of course, the grass has still got to be grown. It's got to be mowed at the right time, collected up, put into the silo. But you can say that my dad and my granddad put the Naur back in anaerobic fermentation. And so, when I heard from a friend that you were starting this Silo Cinema, I thought, yeah, well, I'd be the ideal person to talk about the history of silage and silos pertinent to them. And of course, with modern ways of thinking now that the community is being encouraged to get involved, of course a community silage project might be popular. Yeah, it takes a bit of getting used to the smell, of course, but there's nothing like silage when you get into it. It's one of those things you have to be there. It's no good, really. I mean, you can do a cinema film about silage, and I think it might help, especially one of your slow motion. I heard that you had a slow motion camera, and if you were to sort of follow the whole process right from the fresh grass, the herbal leaves, and do a time lapse all the way through the fermentation, the settling down, the drying out, the transformation of the grass and herbal leaves into the silage, and then maybe speed it up again and have a few shots of the cattle munching away. That could be something special.
I was helped when I was in a poor place by other people, and it was that, people helping me get back on my feet. And that's what we do with Pilgrim Hearts. Pilgrim Hearts helps people on the edge and homeless people.
We're a Christian charity, but you don't have to be a Christian to be part of it.
We started off doing arts projects.
Working with artists, helping people to move on in life, using workshops to enable people to move away from being homeless or women in women's refuge, to help them get restarted again. So we opened a night shelter in Bracknell, run that for something like 6 years. And then we added another one in Wokingham.
7 churches in 2 different areas working together with 274 volunteers. It's up the profile of homelessness. When you think of the numbers of people we've housed over the winter months, we are talking 300, 400 people, and a lot of them have moved on and are in jobs now and have got their own accommodation. But we've done it with a lot of volunteer help and support.
Met some lovely people helping, and some lovely people who came actually to the shelter who just had many disadvantages in life and just had a bad period when they just needed help. And very rewarding, very rewarding.
Is all our volunteers, nearly all of them, have a bit of a story. Nearly all of us in life at some stage have been, at a fairly low ebb. And we've all been grateful or lucky, or somebody stepped in and helped. Here we're running courses nearly all the time. That helps volunteers. It gives them the information. It gives them something in return, if you like. The drop-in, I see it as being a key thing. We actually have 2, St Andrews on the Tuesday, the Methodist Church on the Thursday. That again is a strength, to have different venues.
It's a very uncertain world, and actually lots of things can happen. Relationships end, there's marriage breakups, whatever, and people are then left homeless. Accommodation is usually by rent. You need to have a month up front, a deposit, in order to rent property. So actually, the cost of that is enormous.
It's knowing and working with the individual, often in a very low-key way, just chatting to them a little bit at a time. We don't push things in their face.
We're able to achieve it because we are independent, and as a charity we have our own autonomy. So we're able to work with agencies, whether it's the police, probation, local councils, CAB, all those sort of people. And it's about working together in cooperation.
Some of them are depressingly terrible cases of loneliness and lack of love, and the church should offer love. And I suddenly realised, that many of these people who had problems actually couldn't read and write properly. So the one thing you can give is time to help them read, to write. We found people who are very dyslexic, people who can't use a computer, they can't really even fill in a form to get a job.
Homeless people have a 20-year life expectancy shorter than most people. And that's why we have a health care who works with us. Their health is very vulnerable. And we want to not only give them food, help them get a job, but we actually want to improve their health as well.
A lot of these people have, sadly had really traumatic life events and you know, living in very challenging circumstances. And the great thing is that I've actually got the time. We're not constricted to a 10-minute appointment. So the first time, you know, I might meet them, we might be sitting chatting for 30, 40 minutes. And it's that time which is so important to engage and develop trust. It's invaluable, the support we've had from Pilgrim Hearts. The success is not that we're not just medical, because this population, they do need this holistic approach. It's so rewarding to have been a part of this, and you actually feel you're making a difference working alongside Elaine and her teams.
Homelessness has increased. I think it's going to increase even more because of where we are.
It's not a handout, it's a hand up. The idea is just enabling people to get going again.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound to save a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Are we all not wretches when we come into town and we see homeless people in the street? Are we not wretched when we see them? The Lord says we must house the homeless. Does the Lord not say that? The Lord says it is harder for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And yet there are more billionaires in the country than ever and more homeless people. I was once blind. As I walk down the street, do I look the other way when I see homeless people? When they ask for money, do I pretend I cannot hear? But then Jesus speaks to us and he says we can house the homeless. We can, for there are empty buildings around and there are hardware shops and there are crowbars, and we can open up those buildings and we can house the homeless. And that is what God is telling us to do, for us all to be saved. None of us are saved until we are all saved. And Jesus said we must give succor to the wretched, and we must house the homeless for us to enter the kingdom of heaven. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe this far, and grace will lead me home. Because it is dangerous in our heart when we see the homeless people, and we feel bad, but then grace tells us that we can house the homeless. And we know when we feel bad when we see the homeless people. That is Jesus' voice telling us to house the homeless. And it is Jesus' voice telling us to rise up against the landlords and stop them evicting people. Because we do not want to see the homeless people on our streets. We know that. That is why we feel so bad. That is Jesus' voice telling us, and we can be saved.
Ang ako nga lampas siya is Dagalangit. Dili ang bulang. Wala. Ang akong edad, 56. Isud kaayo nga among pagpaning wa mi makuha nga bulawan. Bisan ang among pagkaon dili namo ma.
This is Ken Dodd, one of the greatest British comedians of the 20th century. We see him here with a little-known pop group of the early 1960s. I've no idea what happened to them, but Ken Dodd never told blue jokes. On the other hand, I became a stand-up comedian so that I could swear a lot and tell blue jokes. Though when I was a child, my mother convinced me that even the word belly was a bad word. My mother also wouldn't let me eat sweets because they were common and vulgar. And as for ITV, far too many blue jokes. Ken Dodd would often start his non-blue jokes with the phrase, "What a beautiful day, ladies and gentlemen." So I'm going to steal that phrase for my real blue joke. What a beautiful day, ladies and gentlemen. But looking up into the sky and thinking, that's what I call azure.
There's one character, this minister commits suicide, shoots himself in the head, and he ends up on the ceiling.
In the early 1920s, acolytes of an artistic revolution known as Surrealism had turned their inner eye towards the subconscious, which is partially hidden in waking life, but active when dreaming, and when we're slightly or intensely mad. The creative potential of this realm awakes the interest of artists because of the bizarre and absurd images and words that arise. Several techniques, including automatic writing and the observation and interpretation of dreams, are employed to open up a dialogue with this mysterious territory. Through these techniques, there is a willingness of the artist to let the subconscious express itself independently without the regulation of the conscious mind. Also involved is the use of illogical juxtapositions, such as the image of a giant blue man trying to row a boat on the pavement outside your home. The meanings of a surreal art piece are not usually apparent but concealed, and therefore they elicit not just an offbeat appreciation, but a myriad of interpretations.
Because I always feel like, especially like with Lynch and these kind of films, it's not just watching them, but experiencing them. And each time you watch them, it's different. Right. Because it depends on the viewer of it. Watching it, it changes each time. Absurdity, it plays a big part in surrealism, going from Dadaism and surrealism and then into comedy, like you might look at Monty Python, who always say they're not surrealists. The absurdity then becomes a part of the language of it. It becomes like a shorthand. So it's like you've seen the image once before, but then it gets loaded up before these sort of like political ideals and the understanding about why that film was made. With surrealist films, you've got the whole commercial elements of it, and then you got those who view it as a piece of art. Like when Un Chien Andalou came out, it was hated by the surrealist community. Over time, as I was saying, it gets reviewed again by different filmmakers, and it becomes like this cult classic. And it's about the audience interpretation of it, how they can gain a foothold and an understanding of it. So if you look at most TV shows now, that's being streamed or on television at the moment, they have very strong surrealist elements in it, and the audience is able to interpret that as a part of the narrative, whereas maybe beforehand it might have been a bit difficult.
For me, personally, most of my surreal moments are the positives. I always hang on to the surreal moments. They're my happiest times.
Fiado moderado, Ja non morirà mai.
Well, this is a funny thing, lockdown, isn't it? It's not. I've been doing a lot of things. All I'm thinking about is just going back, wanting to go back to a time when I was. And the giveaways. Oh, hello. Okay. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed Silo Cinema. If you've got a film you'd like to show or an idea for a future theme for Silo Cinema, then please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.